teachers have read it. What was something that the class clown did that genuinely made you laugh? This is high school biology. A guy who was known for being a pretty good voice actor was reading a page on the properties of fungi in multiple impressions, making everyone laugh. He often got picked to read after that, and never disappointed. We've had Yogi Bear, Irish guy, Disney princess, Shaggy, Scottish guy, Patrick Warburton, and many more. Before he graduated, his voice was also recorded for phone messages informing of school events, school's voicemail, and MC for many school events. In a big 300-person study hall at my high school, some guy started making the sound effect of a drag racer going through the gears. The football coach kept running around trying to find the culprit, but when he went to one side of the cafeteria, someone on the other side would take it up. Finally, the coach, red-faced, yelled, "All right, stop it." The next sound was that of brakes squealing. The whole cafeteria lost it. Talking about statistics on industrial maiming accidents during the Gilded Age, and this kid raises his hand and asks in all seriousness if getting one's nipple rings ripped out by a 19th century textile machine would count as maiming. On my first class, I asked my students to introduce themselves saying their names, their hometown, and something they liked. Most of them were guys, and they liked music, sports, video games and such. After 4 guys introduced themselves, the 5th guy said, "Hi, I'm Peter. I'm from X place, and unlike the other guys, I like girls," and we all laughed way too loud. While teaching sexual reproduction to year 8, one student loudly announced, "I don't get why they call it the birds and the bees. Trains and tunnels makes way more sense." I remember it every single time I teach that unit, and it still makes me giggle. It was math class, and we had a system at our school where you have to have a red card to use the bathroom during lesson time. It was only given to students with bladder issues and stuff. So this girl needed to go to because she was on her period, and the teacher says no. She asked her again, and the teacher was like, "Not unless you have a red card. Do you have a red card?" Student paused for a moment, reached into her bag, pulled out her pad, and held it high, then went, "Yeah, here is it." The group of people around her laughed hard, but no one else had heard what she said and were very confused. While walking around the classroom, I tripped on a boy's backpack and almost face-planted on the floor. A girl asked me if I were okay, to which I replied no. X almost killed me. He turned to me and, without missing a beat, replied, "I won't fail next time." We still laugh about it about every 2 weeks. Definitely my favorite in that group. I only have one story where I really had to try hard to not laugh. Sadly, I think the clown was serious this time. All the students high school were writing texts, and suddenly one student raises his hand and asks teach how is IQ spelled. I had a habit of throwing markers at students and asking them to throw it back. I'd hold up a hand, but never actually try to catch it. Just stood there motionless. During a physics unit, I was tossing a tennis ball around the room. I asked a kid to throw it and took my normal pose. He took his shot and lobbed it lightly at my crotch. Direct hit. A kid with the last name Watts stuck a paperclip in a socket on the first day of school. I don't know if he planned it or what, but he was fine afterwards. I was teaching in China, a private school where parents or the child carers would attend also, and this one child would not listen to me or anybody else. He was totally free and involved in his own wild world. His father accompanied him, but would go into the very back of the room to talk on his cell phone. I had warned the parent to put down or shut off the phone and pay attention to his son. He didn't listen either. I eventually took the phone from the father. His son yelled in English to his father, "You introducible," and he laughed and laughed such a contagious giggle. I guess the kid was paying attention. I confiscated a kid's phone because he arrived to lesson using it to listen to Eminem on full volume. He swore at me, then walked to the front of the classroom, disconnected my monitor from my PC and calmly carried it out of the classroom stating, "You steal my phone." I steal your monitor. I teach computer science, so I was really pleased when he said monitor. He had only ever referred to it as a TV before, and I didn't think he was listening when we did output devices. Silver lining. I was teaching my second grade class about hyperbole. I said, so, if you say I'm the best teacher ever, that would be hyperbole. One of my students raised their hand down, with the surety only a child can have. Said, oh, so it's like sarcasm. Mooned the cops and burst through the classroom door yelling gangster rap made me do it, while being hauled away. I will never forget that males have the Y chromosome because the letter Y looked like an upside down dick and balls. Wait. Not necessarily the class clown, but I once had one of my first graders look me square in the eye and ask me, why don't they call cookbooks non-fiction? It's stuck with me for about 5 years now. I was teaching simple present questions. I wanted them to imagine they were employers looking for specific occupations. Me guys, what questions would you ask someone to know if he or she could be a good, let's say, firefighter? One of them open his eyes wide open and yells teacher. I would ask him if he likes to make calendars. Kinda patting myself on the back here, but our teacher had her fly undone for the whole lesson and people in the class were whispering and giggling about it. Teacher was getting a bit upset, so I yelled out, hey guys, zip it. Everyone burst out in laughter. I think my joke telling peaked that day. Oh, also the teacher never noticed. My F-39 Sun M5 was in trouble and we were sitting in chairs in front of the principal's desk. The principal pointed at his chair and said, what would you do if your dad was sitting there? My son looked really puzzled and said, stand. I looked at the principal and A was trying not to laugh, so I looked down. So I would laugh at her not laughing. Under the desk, I saw that she had one high heel pressed down on the top of her other foot. She was inflicting pain on herself, so she would bust a gut. I teach high school Italian, and I'm the only Italian teacher in my school, so I have the same kids year after year. I have a sophomore boy who seemed to have a big revelation during class. He said, oh my god, Italian is like English, but a different language. Laughed my ass off, and told him he should make that his senior year yearbook quote. Sorry, not a teacher. Just wanted to share. I had a teacher that liked to smack the meter stick on the table to get students to behave. One kid hid them all, and then started to troll the teach. Watching the teach scrambling to find these sticks was pure gold. The whole class laughed. Even the teacher had a good chuckle once he realized he got played. Not a teacher, but was in chemical class. Teacher giving some BS lecture on alcohol, and says something like, alcohol will affect your brain. You may lose your friends, because you act differently. Some kid ducking says what friends? And the entire class including the teacher loses their shit. A kindergartner called me over, and was very proud of what they just colored. The girl sitting next to him looked at it, then looked at him, and said, well, at least you're trying your best. The class clown drew a surprisingly good caricature of a substitute teacher on the whiteboard when the sub's back was turned. Good caricatures are always appreciated. Unfortunately, we need parental permission to show them to anyone, so my collection has to remain mostly private. I'd probably have enough stealthy whiteboard art and random doodles on test papers for a moderately funny Instagram page or something. From my stepmom, I want to note, while everyone had a good laugh, I think she just wanted to quit her job. Her to the class, if you guys won't start studying, 80% of you will fail this year. Voice in the back, that isn't even possible. We aren't that many. Not a teacher, but one day my biology teacher walked in and said, I have something for you all today that will blow your minds. And a super innocent guy blurts out, what? I wanna be blown. The teacher almost fell over, she was laughing so hard. Took the poor guy a full minute to realize what he said. Not the class clown or teacher, but my younger brother was the clown in his French class in high school. He would mimic the teacher's French accent and mispronounce words. and she as well as the whole class got a hoot out of it. One day she asked him to teach the class as a stand-in. Needless to say, nothing got done besides a lot of laughing. My high school mathematics teacher was always really serious and stressed, but we saw him laugh just once. It was right towards the end of the last year, close to our exams and graduation. The Mighty Boosh was just starting to become popular, and so some people who'd seen it started quoting bits from it. In maths class, these two kids started messing around, play fighting, and I think one of them was trying to get something back that the other took. The teacher shouted at them, asking what the heck they were doing. And then this loudmouth girl who was notorious for saying silly things in class just said, "It's alright sir, he just wants to see Josh's mangana." You could see the teacher trying to fight off the laughter, and then he just burst out giggling, and the whole class followed. Hardly anyone had seen the Mighty Boosh at that point, so it sounded as though she'd made up the word mangana herself. The whole class and teacher broke down. It took ages to get back on track. There was another one that I think was even funnier. Although the teacher didn't laugh as much, we had these two guys in a different class who were the definition of class clowns and were consistently hilarious. We were just sitting there one time, doing our work, and one of the guys obviously got bored and wanted to cause a scene. Out of nowhere, he stood up really quickly, slamming his hands onto the table, and his chair flew backwards and fell over. Then he sang as loud as he could, "Cut my cheese into pieces. This is my last dessert." He sung almost a whole verse of Papa Roach's Last Resort, but themed around food, while everyone pissed themselves laughing before the teacher shot him a confused but amused look and just said, "Do you mind?" He just sat down and carried on working as if nothing happened. We were like 13, 14. There was a teacher in training at the back of the classroom, watching our teacher do her job. One guy was kinda bullying the class clown and they started yelling at each other. The bully said something insulting, and the clown just shouted at the top of his lungs something around the lines of, "And what?" Jaw got hard. Everyone lost it, including both teachers. Rearranged my classroom, turned everything backwards by moving my desk to opposite side of room, turning all desks around to face the back, and even moved a bookcase. Accomplished all this during lunch, which made it even funnier. Not a teacher, but in 7th grade science class we had this 20-something dude come in one time to talk to us about weather and crap. Since all of us were sitting in chairs and he was standing up, we were right at crotch level, and it was very noticeable that there was a very large bulge in his pants. We didn't pay attention at all to what he was saying and everyone was just exchanging wide-eyed glances until he left afterwards. Some kid said he must really love the weather and we all cracked up. Consider subscribing if you enjoyed this video, and if you want to see more of Reddit Universe,